All right. Well, let's dive into the U.S. tariffs are hurting China. Now, I know we've talked about this, Chase, on the show. We've talked about it on our newsletter many times that China has had trouble for years with their real estate and everything else. But exports from China, they dropped dramatically, which has weighed on their economy even more than before. This has caused, and I didn't think this would happen, but it did cause protests. I didn't think you could protest in China, but they did. Lost jobs and lower wages in the economy. So they had a lot of pressure. And I got to be frank, I don't think we've seen much pressure here from the tariffs.
I disagree with that.
What have you seen? I mean, the only thing
kidding
I saw,
me? You see people. I see people driving home holding picket signs and like, oh my gosh. I would say we've definitely seen pushback on the tariffs from our people.
That is kind of like the consumer confidence. Oh, things are terrible, but then they go to the movies. No,
You've seen the protests at Tesla where people are standing outside. We have definitely seen pushback. Yeah, that is crazy.
Okay, I guess on that respect, I was talking about on the dollar. Like your actual spending, because the only thing I've seen so far, we buy our fancy pens here, and they charge us a $70 tariff charge. But that's the only thing I have seen. I've not heard anybody tell me like, oh my gosh, I bought this and the tariffs hurt me. I've not heard that, and I maybe I don't talk to the right people. But you're right. I've seen protests. I've seen people complaining, picketing. But again, I think they just think it's going to be bad. But I don't think it's bad yet as far as our pockets go.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree that I think and we've talked about this a lot, their actions aren't matching what they're saying. I mean, the big one we're not going to get to today, so I'm going to give this number anyways, is the retail sales. We saw a 7.8% increase in food services and drinking places, so restaurants again.
Yeah.
And if you're protesting, picketing how hard tariffs are, that is just crazy that you're spending 7.8% more at restaurants. That is the first thing that would go if you can't afford to live essentially.
Well, Chase, what happens? They're out there picketing. You're doing this for 2-3 hours.
Hungry.
I'm hungry on Thursday. All right, I gotta go eat now.
But I would agree with the fact that obviously these tariffs have been talked about, but it seems like people haven't really acted upon them just yet. And they were very brief. I would say it's been about a month essentially, a little bit over a month. April 2nd was the big day the announcement happened. But the big reason that we see this here is we, again, don't have an export-driven economy. So we're not going to necessarily lose jobs to the same magnitude China would, because if people with tariffs on our goods, well, we don't really export as much as China. And the number here that just was mind-boggling to me was exports from China to the United States dropped 20% in April. I mean, I guess it makes sense because of the big tariffs, but that is detrimental to their economy. In China, they did pick up exports from other countries like Indonesia, Thailand, and Africa, but I just got to say, I mean, those countries, they pale in comparison to the U.S. consumer. We are a consumption-based economy, and other countries want to sell to our U.S. consumers because we're huge. We love to spend money, and it's a great market to be in.
And we got the money to spend. And it was amazing, too, that China's economy does depend on exporting. About 1/3 of their GDP in 2024 came from exports. That's a huge thing that they have. And, yeah, they can replace some of it. But our GDP is, what is our GDP now?
20 trillion.
I think
21,
like
22 trillion. I haven't looked at it in years,
I guess. It was like 29 trillion. But I mean, I want to say that's probably bigger than many of the, when you talked about Thailand and Indonesia, Africa, it's probably 3-4 times what the combined of those are. So again, we do a lot of spending, and China, it really hurt them go to bed.
This is the AI overview on Google, so I'm pretty confident in that number, but just in case you're like, that number is wrong, it's like, well, that's what Google told me. It is 29.35 trillion, so yeah, almost $30 trillion. Yeah, I mean, gosh, I was way off on that.
Yeah, you're still back 3-4 years ago. Come up to 2025 here.
Time flies. But, China, they're interesting as well because they'll sit there and tell you there's no problem, right? They want to provide that strength and tell their citizens that everything's good, and U.S., they're the ones that are hurting. But their actions definitely seem to be kind of counter to that fact. The government definitely appeared to be panicking a little bit. The central bank in China said they would cut interest rates and inject more liquidity into the financial system. I don't think if everything was okay in China, they would be acting that way.
Correct.
So, I mean, they definitely seem to be seeing a little bit of pain there. And also, too, some factories in China, well, they were pausing production, laying off workers until things pick back up. Again, if you don't have the orders coming in from the United States, you're just going to make more product. And the funny thing is here, China has done this in the past where they built their ghost cities they almost dump money in. And I think maybe they've learned the lesson. Maybe they're like, well, actually, we need the demand first before we just spend money.
And again, remember, they are a communist country, so they made a mistake with the real estate. You just said maybe they learned, like, oh, in capitalism, you can't just build it because it may not be bought.
So, what's the Field of Dreams? If you build it, they will come.
Doesn't work.
Didn't
for
show
China.
up. Yeah.
I like this too. Goldman Sachs estimated that roughly 16 million jobs in China come from exports just to the United States. I mean, that's huge. I mean, I don't know how many people they employ. I know they're a huge country, huge population, but I don't care how big you are. 16 million jobs that are affected by the United States. That's a big number to play with.
You got 16 million people that are going to be upset.
Yeah.
They don't have a job.
And then they'll stop spending, like, oh, I'm not going to do that. And then that'll hurt the local grocery stores, everything. It's going to really hurt the economy. So that's why I think they came to the table.
Yeah, I mean, it was good to see it. And frankly, I'm going to say shocked. I did not think we were going to get that. And we haven't gotten a broad trade agreement. So don't think like, wow, we got this great thing going. I mean, what has happened is the U.S. is now going to have a 30% tariff on many of the Chinese products. And I thought this was interesting. 10% is essentially related to trade. They still have 20% on due to the fentanyl crisis. So, I mean, that is kind of interesting to me that is still carrying a higher weight than the trade disagreement. But, you know, I know that's a big sticking point to the Trump administration. So,
and to me, and I'm not a drug expert, but to me, that would seem a very easy, fixable problem on the fentanyl trade. But maybe I'm wrong. I could be missing something.
I don't know how it all kind of filters through. I mean, they're so far away. I would think it'd be more of an issue with Mexico. And I mean, I hate to say it, but it is still the fault of many people that do drugs, you know, and don't do the drug.
Yeah.
Here in the United States, if you get offered fentanyl, don't take it. I mean, you know, have a little bit of accountability, but it's flowing through. The scary part is, I guess, when it gets laced in, you know, prescription drugs, and that's where it really gets scary in my viewpoint.
We are getting out of a little bit of our circle of competence here, but I do believe that sometimes people are, you know, they hurt their knees or their back or something, and then they take drugs, and I think fentanyl's part of it, and they get hooked on it. I believe. I've seen movies on that. Yeah. So, yeah. But
the big thing we look at with these tariffs is it was 145%. That essentially created an embargo. I mean, you can't trade at 145% because you're better off definitely manufacturing here in the U.S. because it's just way too expensive. So, I mean, bringing it back down to 30% does make it more manageable. It's definitely 30% more expensive than it was for companies. But again, it is possible to still have trade at that level, or 145% not manageable whatsoever. I mean, I think you would have seen essentially an embargo, a complete pause in trade. So it'll be interesting to see over this 90-day pause how everything kind of works out. There is going to be that rhetoric back and forth, and I think you're still going to see volatility in the stock market because it might be like, oh, China said this. Oh, my gosh, you know, they got to panic, got to sell because this deal is going to fall apart. And then maybe next week is like, oh, China's back at the table. Oh, the stock market goes up. I think there's going to be plenty of volatility here surrounding this China drama.
We want to remind people it is for 90 days, which kind of worries me a little bit. But I think China, again, we talked about the weakness, but 90 days brings you up until about August, and then you get into September. You're now talking about the holiday season, because the holiday season, they don't manufacture products in November. They're manufactured in August and September. So I'm a little bit worried about that. Could that put a problem on our side? But we'll see how it plays out. So.
Yeah, I mean, it'll definitely be interesting to follow.
Yeah.